This week, we're taking a look at the newest unearthed arcana, and I, for one, am excited.
Come along with us on a short trip. We're leaving the Forgotten Realms behind. We are even leaving our homebrew world behind for a bit anyway.
It's our look at the Heroes of Krynn UA this week on the Dungeon Master's Dojo.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Master's Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robotile. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today. Hey, Bill. Hey, Scott.
I'm homesick.
Well, we better get you back home then.
We just left our homebrew world, and I'm already homesick.
Yeah, the food here sucks.
I'm not cooking.
That explains it. It's simple.
Everything tastes like chicken.
How am I going to maintain my svelte physique with
Vegetables?
Fruit?
What is those foul words you say?
Meat.
I'm pretty jazzed at what this unearthed arcana may mean.
I like the way you put that.
I am a little disappointed because I wanted much more.
I'm in that same boat.
Yeah, I was like, woohoo! And then I started looking at it. I was like, wait, there's like a ton of stuff missing.
That's what I was just saying that to Bill.
But I did point out that a lot of stuff that comes out of UA is usually relatively brief and is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Just
we're,
the tip.
we're hoping. Yeah.
You both are cut off already.
Well, I've already finished mine. Scott's still nursing
He's
his.
sipping his.
The UA stuff is usually relatively brief, and hopefully they will expound upon this and flesh it out a little bit better.
I think they will.
Yeah. Now, what this may
too.
mean, though, is that maybe we're going to get a Krynn source book, Krynn being the campaign setting for Dragonlance.
Yes.
I was never a big fan of the D&D novels. I just, But the Dragonlance stuff I really dug. And the stuff by R.A. Salvatore, I like, the Icewind Dale trilogy and the Dark Elf trilogy, and that's pretty much where I stopped because I'm not a huge Drizzt or however the hell you spell his name, Doerden fan. I think it's kind of overdone and overhyped, and he's not that awesome. I know there's probably people that are like,
I could take him.
but
I could take him.
Dragonlance I loved.
You're right. And I'm hoping this does. Well, I think you're right. I think it's going to open up, and we probably will see hopefully a source book coming from this because they're running out of the mundane stuff to throw out of the mill.
Yeah, and
people have been screaming for stuff like this for a bit.
yeah,
It'd be nice to listen. It'd be nice to listen to the people.
Yeah, I don't want to serve coffee at the university coffee shop, at whatever wizarding college I go to. I want something with some meat.
Yeah, something a little more substantial.
Yeah. So I'm hoping. I wouldn't mind dipping my toe back into the deserts of is it Arthas for Dark Sun or Aethys?
I'm trying. You're looking at the old guy with the bad memory. I think it's Arthas.
I think it's Arthas.
Yeah.
Yeah, your memory's shit except for like D&D stuff. That's why I looked at you.
I get it.
Where are my glasses? I can't find my. They're on your face. Oh, okay. What? Yeah. What page is this on in second edition's Dungeon Masters? 238. It's actually a chart. Oh, okay. So we get some stuff.
A touch.
Yeah, just a touch.
The beginnings is
A taste.
Shall we get into it?
Yeah, let's get into this, and gosh, I hope this is for all the noobs here, right? They're probably not going to understand or know what sort of awesomeness may be coming down the pike.
I get that. You're right.
For those of us that like have experienced Dragonlance and maybe even adventured in the world of Krynn, I spent some time there.
Actually, I used it quite a bit, actually.
It's a little known fact that I am actually an honorary Knight of Solamnia. I'm a Knight of the Rose. Yeah, I have the plaque at home.
It's so little known that
well,
literally no one knows this.
I don't like to brag, but I am kind of a big deal in Krynn. Sorry,
There's nothing better than a hero from a fictitious world.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Just like Dritz.
Yeah. Batman, Superman, Flash Gordon.
Or Dritz, kind of overdone, just kind of blown out of proportion. No big deal.
That's me. So we're going through like the usual stuff, right? The ability score increases that we see with all of these
languages.
Yep.
What creature type it is,
lifespans,
and all it is refer to the handbook, refer to the player's handbook, refer to the handbook. I'm getting tired of reading this stuff.
Yeah, and height and weight. But now we get a look at the Kender.
The Kender.
Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman didn't have halflings in their world. They had Kender, which some people will erroneously say are the Krynn halflings, but they're not. They're little. They're about as tall as a halfling.
Slightly pointy ears, humanoid looking. They look like a halfling, but I think the similarities quite literally stop there.
I think it's not.
They're slender.
They're more human-esque with pointed ears.
Right. And they have the appearance, they're weazened.
Yeah. Yep.
Looking. They tend to, even the young ones tend to have, the creases in their forehead, the crow's feet. They generally wear a top knot on top of their head.
Mm-hmm. And they do not have big feet.
They do not. They do
not have the big hairy feet.
Nor do they run about unshod. They wear boots. And they're fearless, or at least they were back in the day.
Back in the day, they were fearless.
And their cultural weapon of choice was the hoopak.
Yes.
Which was a staff with like a slingshot type of thing on it. Or it was more like, it wasn't really a slingshot. It was kind of
like an atlatl for rocks.
Yeah. It was almost like highlight,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Put a stone in there and they let it rip.
Give it a whip. Yeah.
A hand catapult is what I called it.
Yeah, they definitely have kind of 5E'd them up a little bit, where
they
there's
have
a whimsical magic of the Feywild, That's what I have to say about that. They're naturally curious, which is that's how they'd probably bleed into other D&D worlds,
Well, they were hugely curious in the original incarnation as well. So at least they kind of kept that. They just used the whimsical magic of the Feywild as an excuse to make them curious. Or just make them curious.
And they added this in diverse appearances like humans, which I don't think was the case.
No, it was not.
In the original Dragonlance. And here's my take on diversity in a fantasy setting.
Go ahead, because I was about to go on my soapbox, so let's hear yours.
It's diverse as it is.
Yes.
Right? Your elves are your elves. They're different than humans, right? They look different than humans. Their build is different. Just their overall appearance is different, right? And humans, I understand the need for humans to be reflective of the diversity amongst humans in the present day. But I don't think that's necessary for fantasy creatures, because I don't know that you need to be able to relate to a dwarf. It's like I want my dwarves to look like me. Well, no, I don't. I want them to look like dwarves, because I'm 6'4". That's a tall fucking dwarf.
That's like three of them stacked up.
Yeah. They tend to be earthen toned skin, the women have beards. That's pretty diverse. in comparison to other things. I get what Wizards of the Coast is trying to do. It's trying to be, politically correct. They want to make money. But I don't know that you have to add additional layers of diversity to an already diverse environment, right? You got an adventuring party with a half orc, a dwarf, an elf, a half elf, and like a kender or a halfling. That's pretty diverse.
You would think so?
I think anyway, yeah, but that's just me. What do I know?
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I'll add, diversity is a fantastic thing, but you do not have to diversify every single thing you touch. We get it.
Yeah.
All right, you're overdoing it. Knock the crap off.
Yeah, and it is a fantastic thing, especially in a fantasy setting.
Well,
right,
let's go one more step. We're going to have centaurs, but we're going to make some of them goats, and we're going to make some of them dogs, and we're going to make some of. Just what's next? We get it. Okay,
it is
inclusivity,
okay.
But you're overdoing it, and you're making it look ridiculous now.
Yeah,
but that's just my opinion.
And I, one of the things that I always liked about D&D and other like tabletop role playing games was the diversity that is, I think it speaks to diversity in and of itself, right?
It's a diversity we didn't see because we were all young white males.
Yeah,
that basically was the only thing that played the game for the most part. The gaming group we had before we started this one way back when in the 80s and 90s, Travelers Unlimited, we actually had African Americans, we had Latinos, we had women. We were extremely inclusive. And we had a lot of people that came to our group, and we were very, very diversified. So I look at it and go, why are you trying so hard? Well, to make money. Okay, never mind. I answered my own question.
The funny thing is they talk about the Kender having pouches or pockets magically filled with all sorts of trinkets and stuff, and no one knows where these objects come from. Back when the Krynn book first came out, and if you read Dragonlance, the Kender are thieves, right? They're mislabeled. It says this has led many Kender to be mislabeled as thieves when they fish these items out of their pockets. The Kender know where the stuff came from.
Oh,
they forgot, but
they forgot they had it.
Culturally, the Kender have no concept of personal property.
It's there. You're not using it. I like it.
I'm going to.
I might need this, and I'm going to take it. They're not stealing it. They just, no one's using it right now, and I might need it later, so I'm going to grab it.
Yeah, it's a cultural trait with the Kender. That's the way it used to be, and I think that it's perfectly fine to keep it that way.
I agree,
because when you look at it, it's like, no, this is an aspect of who they are as collective people.
Yes.
Where there's no this is your stuff. This is my stuff. This is just, there it is,
Ownership is fluid.
Yeah, and I think when you do stuff like this and it's like, they magically, it's like you take away, you strip a layer of that cultural coolness, from like the species, the race, the culture, whatever you want to.
I know why they did it, because once again they're pandering to the MMO twits, and they're saying, you don't have to write anything down, because apparently like writing thing down now is a lost art. Once again, I'm on my old man box. We're just going to let you just think something up and pull it out of your pockets because it magically appears.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, and I see your point in that. It's one of the things that I always enjoy when I've played Kender characters back in the 90s, which seems like an eternity ago, maybe because it was writing down these things.
Yeah, all the baubles.
This is what is in my pockets.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I take this item and use it to creatively maneuver my way into or out of a situation? And now it's time for a break.
Come play games with the Dungeon Masters Dojo at Rising Phoenix Game Con this April. We're pleased to be attending the New England's hottest new gaming convention from April 22nd to the 24th at the Doubletree by Hilton in Milford, Massachusetts. There are going to be games, vendors, and panels. If you're a GM, a great way to support Rising Phoenix Game Con is to run some games. If you're a gamer, you can support Rising Phoenix Game Con by buying tickets and attending the convention. Rising Phoenix Game Con is organized by friend of the podcast, Scott Legault, and a group of amazing gamers. You can check them out over at risingphoenixgamecon.com. You can get your tickets and sign up for games over at tabletopevents.com. Early registration is now open. We hope to see you at Rising Phoenix Game Con this April. Links will be in the show notes.
Welcome back.
And if you took enough time, chances of fishing out what you needed would increase. At least as a game master, that's how I ran it. You know, if you took a little time and it's like, I know it's in this pocket, but I'm not too sure where it is. And you're fishing around, you pull a couple things out. If you had the time, you could take your time to locate it and you would find it. Some, of course, most often not. They didn't have the time. They were rushed and pulled out, you know, a set of antlers as opposed to lockpicks. But yeah, I think they've kind of diminished this particular.
It's a loss of flavor.
It is.
Right. There's and vanilla ice cream is wonderful. It's one of my favorite ice creams. But you know what? Sometimes I like a little fudge ripple. Right? Sometimes I like the Neapolitan. Keep the flavor in, you know, especially when it's an aspect of that culture or species or race or whatever you want to call it. And be creative. What this did was, I don't know if you remember the old DC role-playing game.
Yes.
That came out around the same time TSR's Marvel Superheroes. It was way clunkier. But they had this thing called the Omni Gadget. And the Omni Gadget, Batman had Omni Gadgets. You know, it's like you can pull something out of your belt that is going to be helpful in whatever situation you're in.
Yep.
And basically this is what it is, which is, I think it's a shame.
Well, not only that, but because it's a magic item, it glimmers softly and disappears after an hour.
Yeah. And I've picked locks with forks with my Kender character. I've done all sorts of things with stuff I had in my pouch. How
many doors have you had to jam, you know, so no one can open it, and you're wedging, God only knows what you've pulled out of your pockets.
Yep, any number.
What are you using? A stale wedge of cheese.
I used 3 Christmas tree ornaments that I had in my pockets. I was being chased by, the party was being chased by a bunch of goblins or orcs or something. It was some monster. I think it was goblins. And I broke them in the hallway. The goblins are barefoot.
Yeah.
So I broke them in the hallway to do a little bit of damage, slow their pursuit.
Christmas caltrops.
Yeah. But stuff like that, it's good to be creative in the game. And I think stuff like this kind of strips that creativity away from players.
Well, it does, because then you just pull out whatever you think you need at the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's going to be a touch of creativity because you have to think of what you might need. But I can see a lot of players defaulting to the obvious and the average.
Yep.
As opposed to trying to, like you said, try to creatively come up with something with what you already have.
They did keep that bravery in there, which I like. I'm happy they did that. I thought that was a unique thing amongst the Kender. But then you possess a magical ability to pull an item out of the bag. The Kender weren't magical creatures.
They were not.
They were almost like small humans with they looked very much like
small humans with slightly pointy ears and sticky
like middle-aged children.
Yeah.
I think that's how they were described in the books.
Mm-hmm.
What a terrible shame. And then they have the D6 chart here, which is flaccid at best. You know, it's a shame.
It doesn't look like they put any effort into this one.
Which a player, and I encourage DMs, I encourage you to pick up the old Krynn book from 2nd edition, do some reading on it, you know, get a taste for what it was like back in the day when Dragonlance was in its heyday. And I think you'll find the information contained in there far more compelling. They do have taunt, which they did before,
the
which
supernatural
is cool.
ability.
Yeah, and it wasn't back then. It wasn't supernatural. It was just they were that person that knew how to get under your skin.
They were annoying.
Yeah,
they were like miniature Luz.
I knew that was coming. Yeah. I saw Scott peek over here. I saw Bill peek over here. I was like, oh, it's coming.
Hey, just Lou, you can't deny.
I'm not going to.
You can't deny.
Because that's how I would be.
So that's my take on the Kender. I hope I didn't upset anybody, but I just feel like they stripped so much that made this race like really cool. They took a lot of that stuff.
It was
out.
a huge race, and they basically reduced it to 4 paragraphs.
Yeah. Shame on you, whoever it was that wrote this.
Yeah.
But we get a sorcerer subclass, which is nice. It's always nice to get some new stuff.
It's interesting. The sorcerer subclass. I went through it a little bit, and I was kind of intrigued a bit. You're dealing with lunar magic.
Yeah.
Phases of the moon and being linked to the phases of the moon.
I think that's pretty cool. I know the 3 moons on Krynn were a very important part of the history, the magic, the lore of Krynn, which is nice that they're looking to those for sorcery subclass. And
I said it's interesting. I mean, you get the manifestations of lunar magic, which is okay because that way people know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are using lunar magic. That's kind of it. You glow faintly with one to match the color of the moon of your world, which is interesting because one of them is going to be black. Your pupils shift into a shape matching the current phase of the moon, and spectral manifestation of the moon or moons of your world orbit around you. Your shadow is limned in a faint light as if it was a lunar body during a solar eclipse. That one would be cool. Some of the magic they give you isn't too bad.
Nope.
They kind of basically took Sacred Flame and kind of the FX did it a little bit. I mean, Sacred Flame a lot of times already was like a radiant energy, and so it's real easy to do that. Lunar Embodiment. Each of your spells count as a sorcerer spell. I think the lunar spells are okay because they're based on the different phases of the moon. And I could see this in play. Later on, you get the ability to shift, between the different phases. But when you start at full moon phase, and then you move into the crescent moon, then in new moons.
It's interesting because, and I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but at the end of March, Moon Knight comes out, and Moon Knight's powers and abilities are dependent on, the
Which
phase of the moon.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like Moon Knight. I don't like Moon Knight stuff in my fantasy. I'm down with him in my Marvel superheroes games, but
I think thematically this could be fun to play.
Yeah, I think so.
It could be because your magic would shift basically weekly.
Yeah.
Just every week you had access to different spells, and other spells would be locked off to you until you get the higher levels where you could freely shift from one to the other. But in the first, 5 levels, you're kind of locked into what phase of the moon is it? All right, this is what I have available. I think thematically it could be fun. As far as effectiveness, maybe not so much.
I think it would be a nice combination to have your kind of lunar sorcerer as a twin to someone whose powers and abilities are kind of associated with the sun. So you would have like 2 very different kind of personalities and abilities, but they would be twins, almost like Karamon and Raceland.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, where you had one that was really, really good and one that was definitely going down a totally different path.
Oh, yeah, we'll have a half orc as your mooncaster and an Asimir as your sword.
Or a tiefling.
Yeah, that could be really interesting. Lou, what do you think? You read these things over and more than we do, and you've already got a character built half the time.
After this one, I really didn't like Scott. I was kind of let down with this, but for this, I find it underwhelming. Very much so. I don't like it really because there's not enough in there for me to do anything with yet.
Yeah, it is a little. It leaves you wanting.
Yes,
it leaves you wanting. There's potential here. I think as a game master, I would homebrew the living crap out of this.
I think as the months come more for as the months come on, we'll see more of these UAs.
Yeah,
hopefully, because I probably gonna say in about 9 months we'll see a book.
I mean, you have your finger on the pulse a little bit better than we do on this one. I don't know. I'm looking for something that I could kind of like, yay, okay, they got it, but they have this, and I can't find anything.
Well, let's talk about the Knights of Solamnia then.
Let's go to the Knights of Solamnia.
Sturm was one of my favorites. And spoiler alert, actually, it's not a spoiler alert. The book's like 40 years old. He dies.
Yeah, he dies. Yeah.
Which is a bummer.
There's at least 3 people going, fuck, you had to say that? Damn. Because some of our noobs that just found that series.
Yeah.
It's going to be mad at you. Sorry, he dies.
You're like 30, 40 years too late. Come on.
This could be a little more fun. You start as a squire of Solamnia, which is interesting because normally you're a knight. You don't have a squire as like a subclass. Usually, didn't the Cavalier have a squire?
I was gonna say, I think in second edition,
second edition, the Cavalier had a squire, I believe, and I think it's the last time we've seen something like
from
that.
Unearthed Arcana.
Yep. So it's nice to see that you can start off at first or second or third level as a squire and work your way up.
Yeah, it almost smacks of the old titles that you used to get every time you leveled.
Yeah. I love those list of titles. I actually use those a lot. Just to screw with the game master because the few times I actually had a game master when I wasn't actually being one. I know what you feel like. The building the character is interesting. You can get into suggested characteristics with comrades in arms or your family, and the protection of innocent people comes first at all costs. You join the knights for the free meals, but their lessons seem to grow on you. I kind of like that one. I wish my deeds to become the stuff of legends, just like those of knighthood heroic founders. And a dishonorable act drove me to become a knight, so I can act with honor ever since.
I like the trinkets, and I love that trinket number 1.
Yeah,
it gives you a CD or a DVD to record all your stuff on.
It's a flat silver disc that you scribe onto, but I like where you're going. I think I like number 5, a meaningful favor from someone you defended, perhaps a handkerchief or glove.
Yeah, I think that
has chivalry all over it.
You got to follow that. Follow number 4 with that. The pommel of your mentor's sword.
Yeah.
You're just walking around with like the handle of the sword.
Mm-hmm. Trying to find the master that made his sword so you can have that pommel put on yours.
Yeah.
That could be, that could be a quest all of its own. Have you seen this before? Every time you go to a town, you go to the weaponsmith. Have you seen this pommel before? Do you recognize? Do you know who made this? Because there's no maker's mark.
That is, I've always liked the Knights of Solamnia. We kind of modeled the Order of the Drake after them.
We did, very much so.
Mage of High Sorcery.
This looks really interesting.
That's what, like, Raceland was, I think.
Yes.
In the Dragon. He was one of these, wore the red robes.
You obviously become an initiate of the High Sorcery first. From there, you build your mage. the study of magic drives the mages of high sorcery. Consider which of the group's 3 orders you aspire to join. The Mage of High Sorcery personality traits table is, as again, another D6, but I would be adding a few things to that, a lot of things to that, but it gives you kind of the basics. My study of magic might reveal all manner of secrets. Magic is a means of power, and I'll use it to pursue my ambitions. I learn magic so I'd be able to protect those I care about. I use my magic to maintain a balance between all things. Whether in the past, present, or future, I'll be the greatest mage ever known. So there's some high aspiring things there, but,
and I like the trinket. That's a lens through which you can see Kryn's invisible black moon Nuatari.
I spotted that when I went, oh, that is cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
I think originally there was a spell. I'm trying to think of somewhere. I'm thinking of course, this sieve that I have for a brain is not going to pull up any kind of details. But at one point, there was some kind of spell that allowed you to see it. And I'm not going to recall which one it is. And someone out there is going to dig it up and go, nope, you're wrong. It was this. But that's how I remember it.
So we got some feats.
New feats. It's always good to have extra feats.
You get the choice of Adept of the Black Robes, which I think is what Raceland graduated to after he left behind the Red Robes.
Yep.
And there's the Adept of the White Robes, of course. And you get Divine Communications, Divinely Favored. I mean, you get a decent amount.
There's actually quite a bit here, more than I thought I was going to see. So, and some of these aren't too bad. When you will go back to the Adept of the Black Robes, you have Life Channel. It allows you to channel your life force into the power of your magic. When a creature you see within 60 feet of you fails on a saving throw against a spell you cast, you can expend a number of hit dice equal to your level of the spell. Roll the number of hit dice equal to half the number of hit dice expended, round it up, and the damage the triggered creature takes increases by the amount equal to the total roll of those dice. So it's kind of like, hey, that didn't hurt. Okay, I can make it worse.
One of the things that I really, really like about this is that you can you can get promoted in the Knights of Solamnia.
Yeah.
Every 4 levels by taking a feat, because I think it was Knight of the Sword, then Knight of the Rose, and then Knight of the Crown was how you worked your way up through the levels.
That sounds about right.
Of membership in the Knights of Solamnia. So that's pretty cool. And then of course there's the Squire of Solamnia, which you start with.
I still like the idea of the Squire of Solamnia.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah. At level 1, what else would you be?
Yeah, you're not going to be a knight at level 1. I would hold the knight until 4th level. And most of them, the prerequisite is 4th level Squire of Solamnia, or 4th level and the Squire of Solamnia feat. So you can't become a knight until you make the prerequisites, and you're not going to become a knight until 4th level. I was just about to say,
this is the first time, well, at least in 5e, that I've seen prereqs.
Yeah. Well, there's a few floating out there. There's not too many.
No, not many.
But this
going
one
down
here,
the list,
like the racial feats.
Yeah.
Yes.
Prereqs,
but this is class-based.
Yep. Now, whether they keep it is another matter.
That's cool, though. I really like that. I think that is neat.
I think out of all this, that's probably the best in there is the Knights of Solamnia.
I mean, you get a taste, right? 6 pages worth of a taste. Hopefully, we get a Krynn book, and it's not disappointing to me anyway.
Well, that's all that matters, whether we like it.
Right? Absolutely. It's hard when this new stuff comes out, as much as I want to see it. When they kind of make these changes, and I understand the necessity for change as the years march on, but I think you lose a lot of flavor, and I hope that doesn't.
Yeah, there's the chance that a lot of it's gonna be. I mean, look at the Kender. I mean, it's 4 paragraphs. That's been butchered. They haven't lost the flavor. That's worse than vanilla.
Yeah,
that's flavorless Jello right there.
But I think it's like you said, they're just giving you a little peek.
And I hope so. I really hope so. And I really hope they look at it and they listen to people getting back to them, because people are going to get back to them, not just us spouting off here. There's a lot of people that are going to get on their web pages and and go to the comments section going, what the hell did you do? At least we hope they do. And they listen.
Yes.
And if they listen, then maybe we'll get, something a little better than this.
We shall see.
We shall see. And that's our look at the Heroes of Krynn UA. We'll see you next time in the dojo. That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.